We're very excited to have Linda Cooper with us. Linda is a trained peace circle keeper and passionate about promoting the practice of peace circles. She received her master's thesis degree. Her thesis was on the peace circle process, and Linda is a member of the Illinois Balanced and Restorative Justice. Linda, welcome to Playing for Keeps. We are so glad that you have come to play with us today.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be there.
Tell us how you became interested in peace circles.
Oh my goodness, it's a long journey. Well, you know, I've always been interested in why people are the way they are and why they do what they do. So I went back to school recently and studied conflict and now work as a conflict engagement consultant. But I think it probably began in my 20s when I traveled. I spent 5 months with a few people traveling overland, and we were camping all the way. And we camped through Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Iraq. I've got it written down here, actually. Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Kashmir, and Nepal. And that trip was just life-changing for me because the kindness and the hospitality, now granted this is anecdotal of course, but the kindness and the hospitality we met along the way, I mean, you know, as virtual strangers to people, just put a real face on, you know, my growing understanding that it's often the systems surrounding people's lives, not the people themselves, that determine much of their behavior. So I really, so that was very impactful to me.
Can you tell us a story about one of those experiences of hospitality while you were traveling around?
Oh, I remember we got to, well, everywhere we went, of course, and we were we were a pretty raggedy-looking bunch, too, because we were camping. You know, in Lebanon, people were inviting us to dinner, all into their homes. We were probably a curio, actually. We went to a Palestinian refugee camp outside of Jordan at one point, and the folks in this refugee camp had absolutely nothing, but they insisted on giving us little cakes and tea, and you know, rounding up the barest things that they had, and they were just so warm and friendly. And as I said, you know, we were strangers everywhere we went. We were just greeted, and because in a lot of countries, in a lot of cultures, of course, it's built into the culture. It's part of their basic principles, I think, to make people welcome.
Yeah.
That's you know, I found that particularly in the Middle East.
Was it something that you felt was missing in your own culture that you discovered in your travels? This is Bob talking.
Hi, Bob. I do. You know, I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and you know, there was a bit of a British reserve there. You know, that I didn't find when I was traveling. People just embraced you at the get-go, and I think I was so charmed by that. There was sort of a trust there that really was quite mind-blowing, and that was, I mean, that was all the way through. I mean, in Afghanistan, in Iran, everywhere we went. Now, this was before all these wars broke out and so on. But it really shaped my. I had one experience, for example, in Turkey. We were in an extremely primitive part of Turkey. People were actually living in caves, and this woman came out. She was holding her baby, and she was really literally in rags. And I thought to myself, I started admiring her baby. I started smiling and admiring her baby, and that's just universal. And immediately she warmed to me because, well, you know, women, women and their babies, right?
You were talking about it's not so much the individual that might keep us apart from one another or showing hospitality, but cultural systems that get in the way. What do you think might be the cultural systems in Western culture that might keep us from showing this kind of hospitality to one another?
Well, you know, I think American people are very hospitable people. But I often find that that's as long as you're just like them. And that's less so nowadays. That's less so nowadays, I think, in a lot. But well, I think this notion of American exceptionalism doesn't help. That that we are sort of distinct from other people. I don't think that helps.
That seems to set us up in a competition with other people, which certainly doesn't help in being hospitable towards others.
Yeah, and I think that we, well, particularly right now, I think we trade in fear. You know, I agree with Michael Moore's statement, and I think it was the movie Bowling for Columbine, where he talked about, in the U.S., we use fear to keep people in check, and I think we're doing a really good job of that right now.
Well, I mean, getting into the whole idea of peace circles, which is what you have, the specialty you've moved toward. What is the difference? I mean, what do peace circles do that's different from the world that we live in? Where there's something missing, of humanity that you're talking about.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I consider the circle process a process that suggests beyond dialogue. What I mean by that is often dialogue involves discussion. And discussion, when I think of the word discussion, I think of the word percussion, where, we tend to beat other people over the head with our ideas. And with restorative circles, it's a sequential monologue process, and it's kind of it's a sequential monologue process and structured listening. And so I think that's what's missing in our culture. In our culture, we're taught in schools how to debate, right? We're taught how to speak, but we're really not taught how to listen. And so the circles set up a structure that puts the focus on listening rather than speaking, and that is life-changing.
Well, okay. When you say sequential monologue, can you elaborate? What do you mean by that?
Well, the key element in a circle process is the talking piece, and so in a circle process, people sit in a circle. There's no table in the middle. Usually there's a centerpiece that people can focus on, so their attention is drawn to the center. So, and in this circle, the only person who can speak in this circle is the person who is holding the talking piece. Now, because the talking piece generally moves clockwise around the circle, everyone gets a chance to speak without interruption or being challenged, at least immediately. The person next to them who gets to speak.
Without being interrupted.
But, I'm sorry?
Yeah, without being interrupted.
Without being interrupted.
I guess I just did.
So this sets up a different dynamic than a traditional dialogue. When people know that they're going to get a chance to speak, rather than having in the back of their mind that they're going to need to sort of strategize as to how to get their voice in there, people tend to begin to relax, and they tend to listen more. For one thing, because they know they're not allowed to speak until the talking piece comes around to them.
Linda, we have about 5 minutes left with you. Can you tell us a bit about your experience of these peace circles with Chicago youth?
I could just tell you what I'm doing currently. Mm-hmm. Currently, I'm working with the Chicago Commission on Human Relations, and we're working in one particular high school now where they're having problems with girl gangs in the schools. I guess gangs is a bit dramatic, perhaps cliques. These girls are getting suspended a lot, which of course is not productive for anyone. So we're working in the schools with these girls, and what we're doing is we're sitting down with the girls in a circle process, and taking each clique separately, and sitting down and exploring with them what they're thinking and how they're feeling and so on. And eventually what we want to do is we want to get the different cliques together, and then from there recruit some of the circle participants, some of the girls, to help us go into other schools and do similar things. Now, I need to emphasize that we try to make this voluntary. The circle doesn't really work if it's not voluntary. Now, obviously, because the school is situated around rules and so on, there's some of that voluntariness is not total, but we try and invite the girls to come, and often they do. We don't get all of them, but we get a good number, enough that the word gets out about what we're doing.
What has their response been to the process?
Well, as has been my experience, they resonate with this notion of a safe place to speak. When I say safe place, I mean a safe place not only physically but emotionally and psychologically, where they can where they can speak and be assured that their word will be heard and respected, and that there's some confidentiality that we hope will happen. It's been very, very, very successful.
Great.
Very successful.
If our listeners want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go?
Well, they can just. I don't have a website.
Do you have an email address that they could contact you at?
Yes. The email is the word chocolate without the E on the end, like the French spelling.
Chocolat.
Yeah, chocolat. The number 1 at sbcglobal.net.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for playing for keeps with us.
Well, thank you for doing this. I love the Raven Foundation.
Wonderful. Well, we love you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Much peace to you.
Yeah, take care. Take care, Bob.
Thank you.
Adam.
Thank you, Linda. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.